What's good with the YouTube of Convicts Perspective? It's your boy Flacco coming live and direct, smashing through, sliding through with my co-host Big Senor Rojo. A little bit of energy, man. What's cracking, everybody out there, man? We got an interesting topic, man. I came across some information recently about the founder, one of the co-founders of what you would know as Nuevo Flores, also known as New Flowers. So we're going to be touching base about Fast Eddie Barra. A lot of people have his name. They say Eddie Ibarra. No, it's actually Eddie Barra. So let's take it back to the beginning. From my understanding, Eddie Barra was he never was an NF member, but he was influential at one time. Was an NR member, from my understanding. Push the Hard Line was really active at one time, and I guess whatever happened to him occurred some issues when High Desert Prison first opened up in the early '90s. He was on the active main line and he ended up getting hit. I think he suffered a 1 to 3 inch gash in his cheek at that time. And this laid the foundation for the New Flowers. You know what I'm saying? From my understanding, the co-founders of this particular group was an individual named Nono Reina from Sacramento and another person named Memo from Tulare County, from Portersville. So this is where the foundation, when they were in the hole. Okay, so from there, Fast Eddie ended up being transferred to Salinas Valley. Okay, he was on B Yard. And this is where the formation of the New Flowers ended up being created, a little bit bigger and bigger. Now, bear in mind back then, but you didn't have SNY yards at that time. You had yards that were established by dudes that were inactive at that time. And so he started, his initial push was he wanted to take the Norteños back to how they used to be before the NR movement, to where you were just functioning as Norteños on these yards. You did what you want to do. You programmed, and when it was time to get off, you handled business. So from there, as all this was transpiring, okay, in the 90s, what they used to do, they used to have a lot of dudes that would show up to the yard, okay, youngsters on first terms. They never took any of the first termers as far as, they didn't take them as threats. So what they would do was they would take them under the wing when they got to these established facilities. And what his main focus was to establish his yard is he would wait for anybody coming that actually had an E number or H number, been around the system. They would go through the same NA process you would have back in the days. You know, where are you from? What's your status? Have you held COC positions? And if you answered any of those questions, it was an immediate red flag. Next thing you know, you were being moved on. Okay, this is how everything started to evolve more and more as far as the New Flowers. Now, according to Fast Eddie Barra, there was no name in the beginning. Okay, it wasn't. The New Flower term is something that administration ended up giving them. Electively, they ended up running with that name. They started to pull people into this foundation. They started schooling people. Nono Reina and Memo, when they were in D Upper, right, which was the oil at that time in High Desert, they started recruiting people. Okay. So a lot of people think that High Desert was you know what I mean? This is where I get a little bit confused, because according to many people, they say that High Desert is where everything was born. But other people are saying that it was actually Salinas Valley. When he left High Desert is when he started to recruit people into this new foundation, this new movement, this new push. Now, he was a very treacherous individual. He was no punk. He was definitely with the business, man. We could use the example by how, you know what I mean, when Lencho showed up in 2002, they were in ADSEG. He played Lencho out of pocket, shot him a care package, shot him, you know, magazines, all this stuff, and then ended up slicing dude through the door. This is what the New Flower started doing. Anybody, it wasn't just any Norteño that they were targeting. They were targeting those that were impactful, that were NR members, that were NF members. Those were their targets. And from there, they were able to grow. He ended up getting transferred from there, from Salinas Valley to High Desert. This is where he went back to D Lower Yard. I forgot the yard that he got moved on when he initially got hit, man. But you know, he was known to strictly be with the business. When he got there, there was question marks about him trying to flip the yard and trying to do what he was doing at Salinas Valley. Okay, so, you know, he was pushing up on people. You know what I mean? He ended up getting moved on the basketball court, right? But because it was a mutual combat, they ended up putting him back out there in the yard shortly after. At that time, they had lost the yard to the Africanos. The homeboys, I guess you can call them the degenerate faction, ended up getting off with the Africanos and lost that yard. Now, bear in mind, this wasn't a delegated SNY yard. okay? This was actually an active yard with inactive norteños, okay? This is where they started to employ the MAC reps. And from my understanding, with this individual, Eddie Ibarra, they would actually pull him into R&R before they put people on the yard. Anybody that came with old numbers, D numbers, E numbers, H numbers, they would pull him in. He would go in there and talk to these people and tell them what time it is. This is not a functioning yard. You mean we program here? If you come to this yard and expect to program, we're going to get off. So he would go fill these people out, and then it would give these people the opportunity to either go out there in the yard, get off, or go out there and function. And this is how they were able to, and man, these are facts. This is how he was able to recruit. So he was basically working with the administration. They would actually pull him up into R&R to talk to people and tell them, hey, you know what I'm saying? Either you're with the program or you're not. And this is how that movement was able to build. Like I said, some of the key figures within this foundation were Eddie Barra, Fast Eddie, of course, Nono Reina from Sakura, Memo from Portersville, Sueno from Sanjo, because he had a couple brothers, Corky from Sanjo, Flaco from Sanjo, and another individual named Smiley from Sanjo. All new flowers pushing that same agenda. And see, this is where everything starts to get, their whole implementation of the new flower was to stand against the NF and the NR at that time. But they were applying some of the same principles. They were out there working out, they were doing clecha, and they were also establishing regiments out there on the streets, believe it or not.
Yeah, hey, the only thing that I really know about them guys, I didn't know a lot. They were real clandestine, like we've talked about before, man. But in '98, I was the block commander in C10 in Pelican Bay. And the list we had with those guys only had 12 for sure's on it. You know what I mean? They were pretty discreet about their membership, man, it seemed, because you know, we had Fast Eddie. I remember like 4 or 5 names. That's all I can remember. You know, this is 25 years ago. But yeah, they wanted Eddie, bro, bad. Dude, they wanted him bad. I don't know. You know, I don't know if it was just because he was going against the grain or if he actually offended somebody, or maybe it was because of what happened to Lencho. I don't know. But they really wanted his cap, dude.
Well, he was taking, like I said, he was taking off on any active homeboys that were showing up to the yard that were pushing that agenda. If you came, right, they would go through the same screening process, NA, right? Hey, where'd you come from? What yard were you on? Did you hold any chain of command positions? If you had a chain of command position, if you revealed your status, like thinking you were on an active yard, it was different back then. So when you stepped to a yard, you were expected to reveal your status within a certain time frame. I think it was either 72 hours. I think if you had to let the other bros on the yard know that you were an NR member. You know what I'm saying? So there was people going to these yards not knowing these dudes were functioning like homeboys, looked like homeboys.
Yeah.
And they had a whole bunch of first termers, because first termers were going to these yards. And my understanding is 9 out of 10 of these guys that were going to these yards, they were not getting off. They were complying. They just wanted to do their time. You know what I'm saying? And this is how they were able to establish yards over there. Like I said, G Laura was one of their headquarters at one time. But people don't realize is it started basically in High Desert at one time is when he got removed, when he was active. From there, he ended up going to Salinas Valley. This is where he started recruiting and started pushing that agenda. He ended up going back in 2002 to High Desert. And therefore, you had each individuals that were pushing this agenda. They had different people that started to recruit into basically it was, they were incognito in their functions. It wasn't put out there. So you got to remember, this was before the SNY push. The SNY did not become active till years and years later. These guys were out there on these main lines, general population, but they were a sworn opposition.
Right.
So if you're a youngster and you're going to prison for the first time back in those days, man, like early 90s, I mean, mid 90s, there's no set date. There's only speculation, because I think in the beginning, from my understanding is the term new flower was basically put on them by the administration. This comes according to Eddie Barra. Eventually, they adapted that name Nuevo Flores, which means new flowers. But administration started to put that their own identity. And little is known, as much research as I've done, you know, I know a few people who've been recruited that were ex-bros, a few that were actually ex-Cs that were recruited into this organization. Little is known, but they almost function parallel, I mean, as to the NF. Their whole thing is that they're trying to let Northerners be Northerners out there in these yards. We're going to program, we're going to do what we want, we're going to take advantage of these yards. That was the whole agenda of them. Let's go back to the old ways. Because they started to do the split was when everything started to change. I think the new implementations that were occurring at that time is what created the new flowers. If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, for sure. All the new rule changes and this with the bros and that with this and whatever. Yeah.
That allowed them to grow. And so, you know what I mean? And other groups seen this, and this was like a trigger effect for other groups, because there was other groups back in there. Let's keep it real. Sacramento one time had something called capital punishment. You had NSSK, Northside Structure Killer. You had Bro Busters. You had all kinds of smaller factions, right?
Bro.
That were on these yards that were mainline. This is before SNY. So when you go to a yard like Jamestown, or you go to a yard like Salinas Valley, or you go to High Desert and you end up on this yard, these people are existing programmed as homeboys, but they're opposition to the NF and the NR.
And as a first termer, man, you might not even necessarily have any idea, bro, because they've been around, they know how to conduct themselves, they know how to play you out of pocket, have you thinking, that you're just being a righteous person, man, at the whole time, man. They're making you a target for being on that yard for anywhere else you ever go, and you don't even know, bro. I feel bad for them people.
I mean, look at the article that we read the other day, right? Talking about SNY. That article was written, I think, in 2005. It didn't list Salinas Valley as SNY, and it didn't list High Desert as SNY or Jamestown. You know what I'm saying? It lists half of Pleasant Valley at that time, half of Corcoran, Lancaster, and Mule Creek. Those were the prisons that were destined as SNYs. So this is a little bit different. People don't get it that during this time era, the communication with the Bay and Corcoran and all that was totally different, that you had people out there that were degenerates that fell out of favor with the organization or fell out of favor with the movement, but they still had the same teaching. So therefore, they were schooling and recruiting at that time.
This has been going on for years, bro. When I first came to the pen in '93, they shot me to Susanville. And man, on the yard, there was an NF dropout, you know what I mean? And everybody there walked around like praising him pretty much, just riding his jock, you know what I'm saying? There was a bunch of, degenerate bros with Mongolians, and like in my situation as well, man, I didn't know no better. That was my first time pulling up somewhere. I seen some of my homeboys there. I knew they were cool. They were programming. Everybody was programming. But at the same time, you got all these fucking high profile targets on the yard and just degenerates of whatever form or fashion. And they're tricking you into thinking you're in a good spot. This shit's been going on forever, bro. You know what I'm saying? That was 93, bro. And there was two dropout NFs. I remember one was Leonard Mejia and the other one was Puppet from somewhere. And then there was like, man, a handful of bros that, a year later when I'm in the hole on the 3 yard, they've been no good for 3-4 years already, and they're just out there chilling and still running the yard. And that's who gets caught up, man. Is them first termers who don't know no better. Then they go somewhere, now they owe cleanup because they were on a messed up yard. It's like, bro, you can't win. You know what I'm saying?
You know what the thing is, right? As quiet as it's kept, man, is this group has still been flourishing. People don't realize it. You just don't hear about them. They do things so incognito. Like I heard that he got rushed not that long ago. Over there at Music in the Park or something like that. He was out there and he had some youngsters that were actually active Northaniels, and they actually rushed him, man. But he was also sending people over there to get active cats for a minute. So he's definitely a treacherous individual, man. He's definitely with the business, was no punk, was no slouch. You could say about whatever he decided to do. I guess he felt some kind of way because, like I said, he was active. You know what I'm saying? And they ended up moving on him on an active yard. And whether it was unjust politics or a lot of people say that he had a tyrant way about him, if that makes sense. Like he was really a bully. He was real aggressive. He didn't take nothing from anybody, but he was sharp. You know what I mean? He was able to play people out of pocket. And he had a system where when people got to these yards, I mean, we're talking a time era when there was really no SNY, but these guys were out there on the yard. This is what people need to understand. These guys weren't PC at the time. They were out there functioning on general population yards, but they were doing what they wanted. They had their own set of rules and regulations and programs that would be totally contrast to what you would experience on other yards.
They just had PC characteristics.
Yeah, but you know, PC characteristics. I mean, you know, I went through Salinas Valley at that time, man, on a courtesy, man, and man, those dudes were in the walk-alone cages just talking smack, bro. You know what I mean?
What
They knew
year?
everything. Huh?
What year was
Salinas Valley.
this?
This was probably around 2000, 2001.
You know, it's a trip, man. When in the 90s, bro, we've talked about this before, you know, on lives and whatever. When there was PCs and DOs and whatever, they didn't talk no shit. They did their little thing and they were on their own. Like in Quentin, you know, there'd be a few, man, they were never on the wire talking all that shit, bro. That didn't start, man, until like, I don't know what changed in the philosophy of the people who walked away, but they just did their thing until like the very end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s. Then all of a sudden they just started talking mad shit one day, bro.
See, these guys weren't conducting themselves like that. Remember, this was only in the hole. These guys were conducting themselves like homeboys, respectful, professional, just to get you out of pocket. And if you weren't in line with what they believed in, you know what I'm saying? Or they felt you were part of something else, you were going to be removed. You were a target. You know what I'm saying? And they took the same type of philosophies and education and so forth. Like they programmed, they were doing Machina, they were doing all this stuff, man. They had the same discipline and proceedings that you had to have as an NR member or NF member was almost the same that you have for being a new flower, or what we used to call Nuevo Flores.
Right.
I mean, the term new flower is something new that people started to put out there and what administration put out there. They used to never really identify themselves. It was Rosio Flores.
Do you know what year they supposedly started?
Man, that's the hard thing. As much research as I've been able to do, you know what I mean? It's hard because, you know, if you talk to Fast Eddie, he's going to say, oh, that's administration put that label.
You and we were calling them New Flowers in Pelican Bay in 1995 already.
Yeah.
So I mean, they got to be early 90s, bro, at the very,
I'm thinking 93, 94.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because we already knew who he was when I was with Tibbs and them.
Yeah. Oh, he's no punk, though. You know what I mean? Definitely with the business and basically was able to manipulate a lot of people, man.
He was like the highest profile target that we had outside of a couple of NF members at the time. You know, he was mandatory, try to take out, not just get him off the yard.
Well, his family was out there in Modesto too. And see, that's where you started hearing that the New Flowers were out there in Modesto, was because he had about 3 other brothers and another cousin.
Yeah, they were all on his whole family. All the male members of his family were on the list. All of them.
Corky, Flacco, and Smiley.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so what ended up happening was you had like-minded individuals, right? I don't think all these individuals, they were like-minded. They were part of the movement at one time, and they felt spurned politically. Whatever it may have been. Maybe they were caught out there using dope on the yard or something like that. I don't know what it may have been, right?
Yeah.
But they ended up falling out of favor. And here comes, they spurned their own little movement. Which kind of it almost coincides with how the old NR used to function back in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they were trying to enforce was, okay, you guys can do what you guys want on the yards. We're going to take care of what we want to take care of. They wanted to control the dope. They wanted to control the stuff in their little circle. And those Norteños that were on the yards were able to do as they want. They were able to function and program. That's what they considered it, programming. You know, a little bit different. They were bringing back the old ways of the NR almost in a sense to where, okay, Norteños, you guys can do whatever you want out here. You guys can use dope, you can drink, whatever. Just if it's time to get off, let's get off. You know what I'm saying? But they were conducting their own business and their activities on their own. You know, to this day, a lot of the SNY yards, man, that they're now on, they do have a foothold on SNY yards secretly. You know what I mean? They're out there still generating money. They're out there still on the streets. They have existing regiments out there. They're just a little bit in opposition to the Northern Riders, whereas the Northern Riders are a little bit more flamboyant, a little bit more young, a little bit more like, you know, hey, playboy, this and that. As we all see numerous times in all their videos, they're a little bit more discreet. So a lot less is known about these individuals, and their recruiting is very selective.
You know what I actually heard from somebody who was on some SNY or somewhere, I don't remember which one he told me he was on, is that the New Flowers actually infiltrate them other little groups and have members inside them other groups where them other groups think they're a part of them, but they're really flowers and shit. You know what I'm saying? I can't even imagine being on one of them yards, bro, with all that weird shit going on. You don't know what the deal is, you know?
I mean, think how sophisticated he was from the get-go, man, that he was able to infiltrate these yards back then. These yards were not SNY or PC yards at the time.
And it's easy to prey on first termers, though. They could have got me on my first term. I wouldn't have known. But I just did my little thing. And
you know who ended up going to a yard, right? B yard was Rascal. He went out there trying to pinpoint a target, and you know what I mean. Next thing you know, youngsters were taking off on him as soon as he got to the yard. As soon as he started telling people like, "Hey, I'm getting ready to get off," and you know, let people know he was a bro, or I don't know if he did that or not. But so Spencer Rascal, maybe you could fill us in, right? But he did get to a certain yard and was trying to establish himself to potentially take off. And before he knew it, he wanted to take off on certain targets, like older cats. Next thing you know, the youngsters that were in the yard that probably had no dirt, nothing bad about him, were the ones that took off on him. You know what I'm saying?
He tipped his hand, not knowing he was on a piece of shit yard.
I mean, we went to a yard. The first yard we went to, the dude that was running the yard was no good. He was a degenerate NR member, and there was active NR members on that yard. You know what I'm saying? You know, Tito from Stockton. You know what I mean? He'd been deemed no good in Tracy. Talking about he had a slice mark on his neck, talking about it was a discipline. You know what I mean? Real talk, getting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And look who else was on the yard with us at that time too, bro. Bo was there, Smiley, and Ricardo London. They were all in the same yard with us, bro. You know what I mean? And the feedback we were getting back on them was this, bro, was that, you know what I mean? They're not priority targets that see business. Unless they present a threat, they're no threat to us. Because this was a time when NR was trying to pull away from the NF at that time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So if you're not an enemy, you're fine, basically. Yeah.
Well, that's what they used to say. C business was C business, which how it always was. But they wanted B business to be B business. They didn't want the NF to have any say so. There was a lot of NR members on the main lines at that time that would have channels to the Bay. You know what I'm saying? That was a thing when you were on the main line back in that time era, was you would have a direct line of communication to a channel in the Bay, hopefully an NRA. Therefore, your chain of command was within the NR movement was the NRC at that time, which also actually had NF members that were sitting on that council. You know what I'm saying? We all know that. You know what I mean? Pizza was one, and a couple other people were one that I know that were on the NRC, but they were actually NF members at that time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Man, I remember being in Juntas, bro, in Quentin in the early 90s. And I could tell in retrospect, I couldn't tell at the time, you know what I mean? But in retrospect, thinking back, I knew some of them Bs that were anti. You know what I mean? Thinking back to what was discussed and demeanors and, you know, little weird shit in the eyes. You know what I mean? Like, and then a few years later, it comes out, oh, these dudes were making a stand against this and this and this and this. And it's like, wow, you know, I seen it unfold, but I just didn't know at the time what was going on. I just figured they were like a weird homeboy or something, you know?
See, this goes back to show everyone, right? The 497 salutations, right? The changes, the dismantling of the NR, that became a recruiting pool for all these factions that wanted to stand against the NF.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
A lot of those dudes became new flowers. And now a lot of dudes that are falling out of favor with the NF and NR, or you know what I mean, with the NF now, there's even C's now who are Northern Riders, believe it or not. You know what I'm saying? Rojo's laughing about that. You know what I mean? I know of two, you know what I'm saying, that I've been told. One I can't confirm, but the other one I was told is 100% one, man. And it kind of shocked me because I knew him personally. I know both these individuals personally well, man. And
are you going to tell us or no?
Man, okay. I heard Lucifer from Watsonville's one, right? That's been told to me by 3 people. I can't confirm him. He's with the business. He ain't no punk. You know what I'm saying? So I could see that happening, man. I also heard someone say something about my old friend Weichel from Saho, who I thought was passed away. I heard that, man. You know what I mean? That he was a Northern Rider now, which would make
older
sense.
Weichel?
Yeah.
What?
I can't confirm that one, bro. I can't confirm if that's true or not, but someone actually told me that to both these individuals. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna find out. Watch.
Yeah, find out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm curious now.
Well, you know, with him, it would make sense because, you know, he got pushed out politically. You know what I'm saying? He didn't tell or do nothing like that. I mean, anytime you get expelled or deemed from the organization, whether you're right or wrong, you're going to feel some kind of way, especially if you're a loyal individual. He wasn't no punk. He wasn't telling. He wasn't debriefing. Yeah, he was running the streets like a renegade, was abusing his authority and stuff like that. But I mean, he is a carnal. You know what I mean? You're always going to back up another NF member, right or wrong. You know what I'm saying? And so he felt kind of done dirty politically. I can't say anything about Lucifer. I've been told that by 2-3 people. And so I don't know if, to be honest with you, I can't accurately say that they are, but I've been told that by 2 individuals. And I know both these individuals, and I could see them, if they felt slighted politically, I could see them going that route. Like, fuck these, I mean, like, fuck these dudes, looking at them as opposition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I myself, however we feel, man, I mean, I could never, me walking away from that lifestyle and being given this opportunity, I could never go on into trying to be a part of one of these other groups. It just isn't in me.
Yeah, no, there's no, it doesn't make no sense, but whatever. That's my opinion. What can you say? Yeah, I mean, I don't know the first dude, but I'd be surprised at the other one. But hey, stranger things have happened.
I was shocked about both of them, put it that way. And this has been told to me by a couple of people, so I'd have no confirmation. It hasn't came out of their mouth. You know what I'm saying? Both these dudes I was close with at one time. You know what I mean? I had a lot of love, a lot of respect for. I mean, I worked with both these dudes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On an interaction level, on chain of command positions, and was really close to them. I mean, so these dudes are actually sharp, smart, and with the business. One's a little bit out there though sometimes. You know what I mean? Has those renegade ambitions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other one was
now he has ambitions as a rider.
My ambitions as a rider. Oh, they're gonna make a video about you now doing that, bro.
Hey, you know what they can do, bro.
But
they could whoop me.
Yeah, when we start touching on these topics, we like to digress off topic and give you guys, some interesting content, man. So please hit the comments, man. Let us know what you think, man. This is just a brief spill about the New Flowers, you know what I mean? Information I've been able to obtain. Maybe we can have a follow back on this topic in the future.
Yeah, we'll find out some more and do an update at some point. Anybody who knows anything, man, feel free to get us in the comments or on Instagram at A Convict's Perspective, DM or whatever. If you don't want nobody to know who you are, it's fine. But yeah, man, that's as far as like the long-standing SNY. I mean, they're not even an SNY type, but we'll just say, as far as dropout groups, it's the oldest one I know of. I mean, I don't personally consider Fresno a dropout group. You know what I mean? But that seems like the first one to me is Flowers.
They're the same as the 2-5ers. The 2-5ers were out there in general population too before there was SNY.
Yeah, I had heard that as well.
You know what I mean? And the Bulldogs.
Probably doing the same kind of fucking recruiting the little first termers and shit.
Man.
And hey, that's the way to do it though. I mean, hey, this goes to, here's the positive message out of this. You go in there as a down ass homie. The wrong person gets at you. It sounds great. Next thing you know, you're on somebody's B&L because you were on a bad yard going against the grain against good homies that they teach you are bad. Prison is a scandalous place, kids. Stay out of it. Get a job.
See, now it's this though, Rojo. It's a state and Fed issue. You can side with one of those wrong factions and get crossed up.
Now it's state, feds, SNY this, PCR that, 50-50 this. There's so many angles coming at you. It'll take a damn.
I'm gonna take everyone back. Anybody who was schooled in the 90s is gonna remember this. Okay. We'd be being schooled by these individuals talking about a degenerate will come to the yard, he'll build a wall around him. You know what I'm saying? The same person who taught me that was a damn degenerate himself. You know what I mean? He was building that wall, recruiting us, making us loyal, you know what I'm saying? So therefore, if any opposition came to the yard, you couldn't infiltrate the yard. You know what I'm saying? It was, man, I'm telling you, man. You know what I'm saying? The way some of these factions operated back then, people don't understand how it used to be, man. It used to be hard going to a mainline because you didn't know who you could trust. You didn't know if you were going to get moved on. You didn't know if the chain of command was solid. And you had to look for certain signs. The main sign I was always looking for was, are they getting high? You know what I mean? By the time I got to the shoe, I was looking in the shoe, making sure that they weren't high. You know what I mean? I did not know that this whole elite stature of individuals not getting high and having HHPs and nobody on some sneaky stuff didn't exist. I thought it was going to exist even when I got to the shoe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So here I am with a whole bunch of C's, and I'm over there looking at them like, I wonder if they're getting high. You know what I mean? I bet you some of them were, though, bro.
Hey, it's hella sweaty and they're selling. They're like this and shit. You're like, hold on a second. Why is he scratching?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Hey, this is what I'm telling you, you youngsters, man. You go to prison, it's not always cut and dry who's good and who's not. You know, you're going to have the obvious ones, you know, yelling out, you know, whatever little gang they think they're from and whatnot. But there's going to be people like we're talking about right now that are going to be like, hey, homeboy, what's up, man? This is how we get down here, man. We need to ask you a little bit about your history, and it's going to sound flawless. Next thing you know, you're a target.
Especially if they start, well, you know, nowadays it's kind of hard. They have such security procedures, right? But if they start to infiltrate these yards again, the interacting.
It'd be hard now. Too many cell phones.
Yeah.
Too much instant information now. Back then there wasn't. It was months and months.
But back then, though, this is the truth, bro. And there's homeboys that are active to this day that have used this statement over and over again. I didn't know any better. Even if they got to a yard and they seen the people using dope and doing all this stuff, their mindset was, okay, I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know what to do. You don't have that excuse no more.
Yeah, no doubt. No. Stay out of prison, kids. You get crossed up.
Stay out of prison, man.
All of you aren't going to be brilliant and be able to decipher that stuff, I promise you. Because it's complicated. It's a complex hierarchy of gangs and politics and bullshit. And the only way to...
I mean, I knew some dude that went to Yuba City and established the whole county jail for a while, bro.
Yeah, piece of shit. He was calling shots. He was an NF dropout, huh?
Yeah, bro. Or you know what I mean? I know a guy that went through Rita was educated in the first service before they went to the joint in the hole. You know what I'm saying? It happens, bro.
Scandalous times, bro. All right, man. Well, there's a little something about the new flowers, Eddie Ibarra. And yeah, the message is be careful, man. It's a complex world and you could get crossed up. Know better.
I want to give this opportunity to Eddie Ibarra. If he's out there, man, we want to get you on an interview, man. I heard that you may be out there on the streets right now, man. If you want to come on and tell us the truth about really what was going on and, you know what I mean, some misconceptions that we may have. You know, I've talked to people that actually were around you. And this is information that I got. They were there when you got hit. They were there on the yard when you got removed on the basketball courts. They were there with you in Salinas Valley. They were there when you were a MAC rep going over there. You know what I mean? If there's stuff that we're missing when it comes to this new flower, man, we'd like to get you on for an interview, man. We want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
No doubt. All right, ladies and gentlemen, man, until later, it's your boy Rojo, Big Flacco, Convicts Perspective. Man, if you got any comments, please use them. It helps us out. Hit that like button and have a great rest of your Tuesday.